All right, my name is Santos,
My name is Justin.
and today we're talking about government shutdowns. This is one of the things that is always in the news. But honestly, most people don't really know what it means or why it keeps happening.
Yeah, you'll hear government shutdowns, but nobody really explains it in a simple way. And depending on the news source you go to or watch, it feels like different groups are always getting blamed.
So our research question was, how has news reporting on U.S. government shutdowns framed responsibility, and how do economic and political perspectives differ across outlets?
Basically, who does the media say is at fault, and how does that change depending on the news source?
We looked at articles from Reuters, PBS, BBC, ABC News, and CNN, and they all kind of tell the story differently.
So first is Reuters. The article we used is by Andy Sullivan from January 2026, and it explains why the government might shut down.
Reuters mostly explains how shutdowns happen when Congress can't agree on a budget, like they just can't decide how money should be spent.
They talk about how Democrats and Republicans usually disagree on things like spending, taxes, and funding different programs.
For example, one side might want to spend more money on social programs, or the other side might want to cut spending or move money somewhere else.
And when they can't exactly compromise, the budget doesn't get passed, so parts of the government shut down.
Reuters doesn't really say one side is worse than the other, they just kind of explain what each side wants.
Which makes it feel more neutral, like they're not trying to convince you of anything.
So responsibility in Reuters is framed more like a system problem, not one party messing everything up.
PBS took a different approach, though. Their article talks about polls that show who Americans blame for shutdowns.
Instead of just explaining politics, PBS focuses on public opinion.
The poll they talked about showed that Americans were more likely to blame Republicans, especially when Republicans had more control in Congress.
They also explained the people usually blame whoever is in power at the time.
PBS includes quotes from politicians responding to the polls, which kind of shows how politicians react when the public gets turned against them.
The tone is really calm and easy to understand. It doesn't feel aggressive at all.
So PBS frames responsibility as something based on public perception, not just what actually happened behind the scenes.
It shows that shutdowns affect how much people trust the government.
Then there's BBC News. Since it's not an American outlet, the news more just sounds like it's trying to explain the U.S. government to people who don't live there.
Yeah, they kind of break things down more simply, like explaining how Congress works and why disagreements happen.
They talk about how shutdowns happen because lawmakers can't agree on funding bills.
They also mentioned that sometimes the arguments aren't just Democrats versus Republicans, but people within the same party fighting each other.
For example, more extreme members of a party disagree with moderates.
BBC also talks a lot about what actually happens during a shutdown, like national parks closing or government services stopping.
They mention things like passport delays and federal workers getting laid off.
So BBC doesn't really blame one side. They make it seem like the shutdown is a result of overall political dysfunction.
ABC News focuses way more on effects of a shutdown.
Yeah, they talk about money a lot, like one shutdown costs about $3 billion.
That number makes it feel way more serious because it's a lot of money.
ABC also talks about federal workers who had work without getting paid, like TSA agents at the airports.
They give examples of how airport delays get worse during shutdowns because workers were stressed or calling in sick.
They also talk about families of government workers struggling to pay bills while waiting for back pay.
ABC points out that the shutdown wasn't just caused by one party. Usually, there's arguments within the same party, too.
So responsibility is framed through consequences, like what happens when politicians can't agree.
Then there's CNN's article. It's more about who gets blamed than when a shutdown happens.
They explain that the party that has more control usually gets blamed more by the public.
CNN uses polling to show how Democrats and Republicans usually blame each other.
They also talk about how political views affect who they think is responsible.
Like, if you're a Democrat, you'll probably blame Republicans, and if you're a Republican, you'll probably blame Democrats.
So CNN frames shutdowns as more of a political blame game, kind of.
When you look at all the sources together, you can see how different the framing is.
Reuters explains how shutdowns happen.
PBS focuses on public opinion.
BBC explains from an outside perspective.
ABC more focuses on money and the people being affected.
And CNN focuses on blame in politics.
Overall, the media just doesn't report shutdowns. They shape how people understand them.
Depending on what outlet you read, responsibility can look totally different.
It can seem like one party's fault, the system's fault, or just even the politicians not caring about regular people.
So how shutdowns are framed really matters because it affects how people feel about the government.
And all in all, it explains why everyone argues about shutdowns, even when they're talking about the same event.
Again, my name is Santos.
And I'm Justin.
And have a great day.